Joining us now to discuss this and much more, an old friend. We haven't talked to him in a while, Senator Rand Paul of the great state of Kentucky, and he joins us now. Senator, it's good to talk to you. Having a good summer so far?
Very good. In fact, I'm going to be getting out of Washington next week, and it'll be nice to be spending time in Kentucky.
Are you going to the convention?
You know, I'm going to be busy campaigning. I've got a race going on in Kentucky. I'm up for election in November, so I've got events scheduled for the next 6 weeks doing town halls around Kentucky. I've done 55 town halls so far, and I plan on trying to get another 50 town halls in the next 6 weeks.
So it's not that you don't want to support Trump. You're just busy with the other stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really my election, and I've got to run my race and be there. And the problem with being in Washington so much is that it occupies so much time that, you really do need time to be at home, to travel around to all the different cities and to meet with folks. And so, no, it's just a matter of needing enough time to be at home.
What if I got you a jet, a private jet? I'll come pick you up, take you in. It'll take like 2 hours just to come and give a little talk, and then literally it'll take maybe an hour and a half. I could get you in and out. Still no?
Yeah, I think I've already got everything planned and everything set in stone. But
Drew, hold off on the plane. Okay, it's called NetJets. We're not doing that. We had the whole thing planned out for you too. I'm not kidding you. You think I'm joking? I'm actually not kidding. Senator Paul, I'm just teasing here. But let's talk about the Hillary Comey issue. A lot of it got blown out by the news of last week. Of course, the 5 Dallas police officers murdered by that black nationalist. And yet all these questions remain. Her credibility, of course, in the toilet, as far as I can tell, in these public opinion polls. Yet is the country just going to move on and say, well, like Hillary said, the case is over, let's move on?
Well, I think there are two issues. One, I think it's very damaging to the respect for the law and for the idea that we're all treated equally. Part of some of the dissension and unease in our country is that people don't feel like everyone is treated fairly, that some people are treated differently under the law. Our uniformed soldiers, we have a lot of soldiers in Kentucky, Fort Campbell, Fort Knox, and if any of them misuse classified information, they do not spare the rod. They are court-martialed. They lose their rank. They often are drummed out of the service, and sometimes they're imprisoned. And so I just don't think that we can hold our soldiers to that kind of standard and then say to a politician like Hillary Clinton, well, I guess it's okay because you're running for president. So I think it does a lot of damage to respect for the law. On another note, I think the great damage is, and that people need to consider in deciding how they're going to vote, is that national security is very important and one of the most important things that your president will be occupied with. And I just think it shows a lack of respect for national security.
Absolutely.
That she would have, for her own convenience, put these emails out there. One of the emails that was classified was Ambassador Stevens' travel schedule in the last 2 days of his life. So you can imagine how you wouldn't want that to fall into the hands of terrorists, to know exactly where he's going to be at every moment of his life, because it puts people at risk. And she just didn't think through, or didn't think it important enough to put that on a government server. She just thought, well, I'll just send it through regular email. And I think that's inexcusable. I think if you combine – go ahead.
No, I was just saying, when you're a foreign government and you're thinking of communicating with the American government, and the person you now have to communicate with is, Hillary Clinton or her team of rules violators, I don't see how you'd have any faith in that any of your communication would be held in confidence. I mean, I just don't know how you would expect that after all this.
And it really goes to judgment, just such poor judgment and more concern for her convenience than national security. But it also, I think, fits very well with her lack of judgment in pulling out the security that was defending the ambassador. For the 6 months preceding the attack in Benghazi, she removed over 20 Special Forces troops who were in country, who were pleading to stay. She didn't read the ambassador's cable. A month before he died, or a month before he was assassinated, he was pleading to keep the final remaining 16-person Special Forces team led by Colonel Wood. And I asked her that directly in committee. Did you read the cables from Ambassador Stevens pleading to keep the security team there? And she acted kind of put off and said, oh, no, like it wasn't her responsibility. But ultimately, the buck stops, with the commander-in-chief or with the secretary of state, whoever's in charge. And really, she cannot escape culpability for the deaths in Benghazi. And it really should forever preclude her from being commander-in-chief.
So what could be done in the future? So going forward, we know what we know so far about Hillary's handling of these documents, the statements from Comey. Give us what the options are versus Hillary?
Well, I was disappointed that she wasn't indicted, and I think that does damage to the rule of law. However, I would say that I think even the FBI felt guilty about not indicting her, and one way they assuaged their guilt was by pointing out that she lied at every turn. And so when the FBI director stands up there and says very directly to the American people, these emails were classified, they were classified at the time that Hillary Clinton sent them, and she knew it, I do believe that that is greatly damaging to her, and I think the fact that the majority of Americans feel that she's dishonest, combined with the money she made while trading on her political service, the money Bill Clinton made while negotiating deals that had to be approved by the Secretary of State. This is alarming, and I don't think everybody in America yet knows that she had to approve of a uranium sale that sold a uranium company to the Russians. Bill Clinton made money speaking to the bank that negotiated the deal, and then the people who sold the uranium company gave over $140 million to the Clinton Foundation. This is a scandal that has not yet really been fully understood by the American people, and when it is, I really think there's going to be nobody left in America who believes that the Clintons are honest and not money grubbers.
So the main thing, though, is she can't be president of the United States. I mean, that is clear. She cannot become president of the United States. Given everything we know, given how she handled this information, given how she conducted herself on the night of the Benghazi attack, Hillary Clinton is not fit to be president of the United States, correct?
Absolutely not. And think about it this way. When the troops were going, a day late and a dollar short to go to Benghazi, they were made to stop and change their uniforms 4 times. So imagine for yourself that our embassy in Baghdad is under attack and we're sending troops in and Hillary Clinton's in charge, and she's now making the soldiers change their uniforms until she gets it just right and doesn't offend any of the freedom fighters that are over there. That was their whole goal in Libya. They considered these militias, the ones who actually probably participated in the killing of our ambassador, she considered them to be freedom fighters, and her whole goal in not wearing uniforms was not to offend the sensibility of Libyans, and in doing so they wasted time that might have been used in actually getting there to provide help.
We're talking to Rand Paul here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Let's move on to sort of global politics here. We saw what happened with the Brexit vote. We see the rise of nationalism, more nationalist economic policies, groups in Europe, whether it's in Switzerland, Sweden, Italy, France, and in Germany. There clearly is a growing distrust about the results of globalization in not just the United States but around the world. How should the Republican Party, as a party, proceed, given what we've seen with the various trade deals that have gone forth, whether it's WTO, China cheating, or NAFTA, or all the others?
I think it's very understandable for particularly those in England to say, gosh, this EU thing is dragging us down. I never would have, my advice was I would have never joined in the beginning. But there are a couple things. Some have pointed to immigration, open immigration, and there's a great deal of insult and injury in England to people who come and then they're immediately put on government dole, some of them making incredible salaries as government welfare and then preaching hatred and violence. They finally deported an imam who was preaching violent overthrow of the British government. It took them years. And so you can see how people are insulted by people who are coming to their country and then preaching hatred and violence and inciting violence. So you can see they're upset with that. The Brexit movie, I highly recommend. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I saw a clip of it the other day talking about the regulated man. And they had a man waking up from sleep and talking about all the regulations on his pillow, his sheets, his alarm clock, his cell phone, his water from his tap, the water from the shower, his car. And so this wasn't just about immigration or trade. It was also about giving sovereignty up to a bunch of bureaucrats in Brussels who were adding just regulation after regulation. I love the way they describe it in the movie. They described it as invisible barbed wire that surrounds our daily life. Yeah. And that's true. But it's also happening in America as well, and we need to fight that off.
Well, I think you have it right. I would say that You can't expect people year after year after year who don't get a raise, who are basically just told, it's not going to really get much better. We're going to the country's going to be flooded with low-wage workers who are probably going to take a lot of these entry-level jobs, and that's just the way it's going to be. And this is the result of what our policies have been way predating Obama. And that's just we're going to continue to bow down to the altar of globalization because that's just what we must do as conservatives. I mean, that was rejected, Rand. That was rejected in this campaign. Period.
I would also argue that income inequality, wage stagnation, the erosion of the middle class, that it also comes from governmental policy, and it comes from Federal Reserve policy that has destroyed interest rates. Common people were at one point in time would put their money in conservative investments in the bank and make interest. Now the only interest that is to be made is the government pays the big banks $14 billion in interest, but in doing so has kept the money locked up in the big banks who make easy money off of the taxpayer. And as a consequence, income inequality continues to get worse, but it's doing so largely because of government policy. We also have tax policy that chases American jobs and American companies out of our country. We have the highest corporate income tax in the world, and when companies reincorporate overseas, they're fleeing our tax code.
Well, I just say, look at where the middle class was before China became a member of the WTO, and look at where the American middle class is today. It's a staggering graph. Let me play a soundbite for you. This is Jeb Bush yesterday in Kennebunkport.
There's a threshold past which anybody that steps in the Oval Office must go past. And I don't think either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump passed that threshold in terms of temperament, character, trustworthiness, integrity. So what do? I can't vote for either one of them.
What is your reaction to that?
Well, when I was running for president, everybody thought, well, the establishment candidate might win and Trump might run as a third party. So they asked everybody to sign a statement saying, you know what, I pledge to support the nominee. It was done to prevent Trump from running as the third party. It was never done intending that he would be the nominee, but everybody signed it. And I guess I value my signature, I value my word, and so I think it is important that people do support the nominee. For many, many years, people have sucked it up. Conservatives had to suck it up and support moderate establishment nominees. And, when the establishment doesn't win, then they don't necessarily like having to support otherwise. But I think it's a mistake, and I think there are many things that Trump is talking about as far as trying to restore our country, as far as trying to lower taxes on business, as far as trying to lower the regulatory burden, and really, frankly, his discussion that the Iraq War was a mistake are a new kind of vision that has a chance of sort of bringing together a coalition that can win. And I think you combine that with the disaster and dishonesty of the Clintons, and I think there is a recipe for victory.
Rand, I wish you were going to the convention, and just not only because we adore you, but I wish you were going because I think your voice is really important, and I think your perspective is really valuable, and I think the party really needs you. And I know you have a lot to do, but I'm your friend. I'm just going to say what I think. I think you should come, and I think you should speak. I'd love to hear you speak at the Republican National Convention. So I'm just going to say my piece on that, but I always do. So I wouldn't be Laura if I didn't tell you what I really thought. But I think there's too much at stake.
If you were in charge and we're having the Laura Ingraham Convention, you invite me to that anytime.
You bet. All right. Well, you know something? We might just have to have our own convention then, Senator Paul, because I would love for you to be part of it.
I think we need that. We need that again because remember all of the excitement when the Tea Party movement got going. We had 1 million people on the mall here in D.C. Those people are still out there and they're still frustrated, but we need that again. Yeah. We need to see the crowds coming together again saying we do want to take our government back.
But you could help us.
Sick and tired.
You could help make those crowds. You could bring all your people to the convention. Come on. I mean, he's the nominee. I know
Laura.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but all I'm saying is we need you, and I really would like you to come. And I'm selfish because I really want you to come because I want to hear you. But anyway, enough sucking up to Rand Paul. Senator Paul, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Laura.
All right. Well.